Hi there, Tim Warner here, host of the Inform IT Certification Reference Guide. In this installment of our Test-Taking Skills Clinic series, we'll be looking at Exam 220-601, the CompTIA A+ Essentials exam. If you're new to this series, what we do here is take two representative practice exam questions from a particular IT test. Now, you don't have to be studying for the test in question, because the point here isn't so much the subject matter as it is learning how to strategize and approach IT certification exam questions. Now, our agenda specifically is to look at the exam, meet the book and author behind the questions that I've selected, and then look at those two questions in particular. So let's get to work. The exam under consideration today, as I said earlier, is 220-601. This is the CompTIA A+ Essentials test. This is considered a ground floor entry-level test for those who are new to the IT industry. A lot of folks use this as their entry-level test into the field. Specifically, it covers the PC repair technician job role. If you want to learn more about it, hit up certification.comptia.org. The book from which I've pulled these two questions is from our Exam Cram line. This series, this imprint, has been around for a long time. I used it back in 96 and 97 when it was owned and published by a group called Coriolis to study for my Windows NT 4.0 MCSE. That was my first certification track many years ago. The author of the A+ stuff is a guy named Chuck Brooks. He's been around for a long time. He's a respected trainer, an author, an instructional designer, and he's the vice president of this company called Marcraft. They're an educational and IT consultancy. You can hit them up at etgcorp.com. Finally, before we get started, I've pulled the screen captures that we're using for our questions from Safari Books Online. After all, it would be pretty low-tech for me to take a paper-bound copy of the Exam Cram book and scan those pages into my computer. Hit up safaribooksonline.com and you can look at all of the Exam Cram books online. It's hard to see probably depending upon how you're looking at this screencast, but you see these little miniature Adobe PDF icons. You can search across thousands and thousands and thousands of Pearson and non-Pearson titles. You can put together custom books that you can then print and save to your computer in PDF format. It's a wonderful subscription service. I just think it's great. I've been a subscriber for many years. Now then, to business. Question 1 in the A+ stuff. Let's take a look at this. When you ask a remote user to describe a problem he is having, he tells you that he hears a loud popping sound from the unit and then smoke. Gee, that's not a good situation, is it? Which of the following should you have the customer do first? Now, CompTIA items are known for their brevity. If you've looked at my screencast on Network Plus, we discussed that. The fact that the CompTIA questions, the fact that they're so short is a little misleading, that you might think, oh, well, I'm going to ace that exam because I can just breeze through the questions. Well, it can actually be kind of a sticking point that they're so brief because there's really not a lot to go on. You have to parse the words and stick with exactly the text you're given. Now, let's look at the choices, and the first thing I tend to do is see if we can throw any of these choices away. Look and see if there's anything that's just obviously there as a distractor. And if we look at D, tell them that magic smoke has left the machine. Now, CompTIA is not going to give you anything that's that ridiculous, but frankly, you'll see one choice that is almost that ridiculous, and suddenly your chance of answering the question correctly goes from 25% to 33.3%. That's not so bad, right? So that gives us try to restart the computer, unplug the power supply, and have the customer check his purchase documentation. So even if you haven't studied really hard for the test, you might be able to apply some common sense here and think to yourself, well, gee, if I'm seeing popping and sparks and smoke, I'm going to want to unplug and remove power from that computer. I think even a non-technical person should be able to answer this question. So actually, let me go back. I don't mean to just buzz through there. The correct answer was in fact B. Question 2. After printing out a picture you have downloaded from your digital camera, you notice that the color on the printed version is very different from what you see in the camera. What action can you take to make the printed copy more closely resemble the copy in the camera? Now, the reason I chose this question is sometimes your reasoning skills, sometimes your common sense skills like we saw in question 1 simply aren't enough. Sometimes you either know the relevant vocabulary word or you don't. In this case, if you don't know the word calibration, you're hosed. You're just going to basically have to take a blind guess, and you've got 25% chance of getting the correct answer. So that's why I chose this as our review question. This is to underscore the principle that there is some mojo, so to speak. There are some tricks to writing certification questions. I've written a lot of exams for Transcender, for instance. I've written exams for Prep Logic. I've taken, I'm sure, over 100 IT certification exams in my career so far. I know a lot of those tricks myself. As a test taker, there's lots of tricks of the trade as well. All that having been said, oftentimes it boils down to you either know your stuff content-wise or you don't. So that's why C is the correct answer here. You have to know the relevant vocabulary to get through this question. Wrapping up, my name is Tim Warner and I'm always at your disposal to help. You can contact me via email at timothy.warner@pearson.com. The homepage for these on-certification screencasts is informit.com/on-certification. I write a blog and maintain an IT certification term glossary and also have some interactive flash movies and demonstrations and screencast materials at the Inform IT Certification Reference Guide. Easiest way to find it is to point your browser to informit.com and perform a site search for Certification Reference Guide. Or at the homepage, you can go to the upper right corner. You'll see a link called Reference Guides. Click it, and you'll find me from there. Thanks a lot for watching the screencast. I hope that you found it informative. See you again.